In and out of but she's conscious. We have nurses up in this, but it's
Beautiful form.
Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple here. The launch. Yeah.
That seems to know what needs,
It's too simple. We seem to be ready to go.
I don't know. Do you have the mic?
Right? Oh yeah.
Mr. seemed to be ready to go. Never point the mic at the amp. Never.
I don't want the mic over on this side if the speaker's over there.
Okay, because we don't have enough wires to trip on. I have a feeling my dear late uncle, the fireman, would have a lot to say if he walked into your house.
Well, if he walked into my house and he was a dear late person, I'd be afraid too. All right, people, how is this for a sound check?
That's good.
If I were a poet up here,
Sounds good.
that would sound all right? Or could we use a little more, a little less?
Depends on how loud.
Just a little tall.
Yes. I do.
I'll move you down.
I encourage our poets to speak loudly. All right, I think we're ready to go at 6 o'clock.
I think we need skirts.
Yeah, Curtis would be good. But you go on first. So that's true. If he doesn't show up, you're the feature too.
Well, I can do that.
We could always run the microphones of our own. We didn't bring those. You guys see? That's for certain. Amazing workshop.
Gravy meals.
Yep. Yeah, last time we had the AC. That was the whole point.
Yeah, but she had nothing to do with it all the whole time.
Yeah. Well, maybe she came in late once we had the third.
Good job.
It's just a mystery.
Okay, anyone at home right now, if you can hear me, tell me so in the chat. I'm making sure that the microphone up here at the podium actually works. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for responding. So I think we know we have the setup right. So thank you.
Looping all over the dog trying to eat. We just had this.
All right, how's the program now? And we will worry.
We were ducks on all that we evacuated. Take our stuff. They realized that but we were she was like, yeah, I remember you told me that she was upset. We have a lot of them. So that's that life is.
Yeah, that's the ticket.
How about you?
Well, me too. My wife lives in Riverside. And we moved and she puts it around it has sidewalks, restaurants, pharmacy, grocery stores.
Nice.
And because she's too yeah, we got everything in this house. We're gonna live another 30 years. And it's just endless money. Other than that, it's just
Like,
75. He's fixing plumbing.
I got you, 77.
You got it.
I'm not carrying on that. I've had a couple of injuries over the years.
Yeah.
You're not admitting.
But that's it. You think, okay. That's a whole other country.
My.
Well, Stephen, his last name, popped in Gage. He did the anthology for the Texas Review Press, 70 anthology. Stephen. In his head, it comes to the aneurysm. You think, well, I got you.
Yeah, ideally.
I had an old Uncle Mel. He went his early 90s. Everybody was very, it's good.
We would get an introduction to them, just up there.
No, I'm sure Jimmy's gonna be in control. We still have two. So this is daughter and grandson. He was a camping.
Yeah. I remember.
I keep trying to get away, but now my daughter's there with her kids, and it was sheer coincidence. She went to psychology PhD as I'm really old. She stayed with my sister for a year. And then
Is she doing clinical work?
she does work with autism, diagnosing, testing, and then, so she's in a small practice. In Bethesda, she actually tries it. Takes the she's great. She's Baltimore. So they're a bit of a roadhouse. And just,
Everybody have a program? Richard, you got it?
No.
You need a program.
Come on, you get the door. Oh, that's good, sir.
I win. You also like fun.
is there a good trick one?
Okay, I didn't win.
What a prize? He lives quiet. You live quietly. I doubt that.
I don't know where you got that bio.
So there's only one contest that has to be published, right? It doesn't matter.
No, and they have two characters. So you get your money back.
So what's interesting is they also have beautiful science.
I actually could do. I'll show you. So this is not too bad. You need this. That's really great. She had. And this one is just coming out Monday, I promise positive.
Oh, finishing.
What's, Yvette, her.
Yeah.
And is she running it next? No, because she got it. She didn't want to. Is that two jobs?
Greetings, everybody. Welcome to the October reading. We have 5 people watching virtually. Actually, today at the workshop, we had 10 people who attended the workshop virtually. I think some of them wanted to be here, but the flooding kept them away. And we had someone from Colorado Springs. And so that was interesting. Well, welcome to this reading. This is the 730th time, 730, that the Poetry Society had a meeting. And I finally can say what happened 100 years ago this month. The last 3 months, or 2 months, August, September, they hadn't met yet, but in 1925, 100 years ago, almost to the day of this month, they had their first reading of the year, of the 25-26 calendar year. And it was not, they had readings, well, meetings, that's why I think they called them meetings. They had meetings that nowadays we would handle with emails. But they love to get together. So they would do things where they got together and there was no poetry at all, no poet, whatever. But this one 100 years ago in October was one of those. It was the inaugural reading of the year. It was John Waring's first year as president for the second time, and they talked about the prevalence of novels in Poetry Society members writing novels. 1925 was the year that Porgy came out, DeVoe Bennett's first book, and of course that would later become Porgy and Bess the Opera. But that was very encouraging for Tom Waring, and he recommended that more people get involved in writing novels. And the speaker that night was John Bennett, and he had already, so by 1925, the Poetry Society had already had 4 seasons before that. And during that time, John Bennett really got mad about having a little bit too much of the pie to take care of, when he had already said from the outset that he was not interested in doing a lot of work for the Poetry Society. And a lot of stuff got dumped on him. And he seemed to have, from everything I could tell from his letters, just about an infinite depth of feeling of how much people take advantage of him. He really felt it deep down. Anytime that he had to do more work than someone else, he would just sit down and write about it in infinite detail. And I felt like, of all the people I wrote about in the book, John Bennett was the one I think I got to know the most, because he was so thorough about recording everything that ever happened to him, in all his thoughts and all of his complaints and his self-pity. And it's a really fascinating thing to read somebody's, like, hundreds and hundreds of these things. Every single week, he sat down and wrote what he called his Sunday budget. And the Sunday budget was basically everything he did or thought or whatever that week. He typed them out on a typewriter. They would run 9-10 pages, single spaced, no margins, top to bottom, just in almost stream of consciousness. No paragraph breaks. He used ellipses all the time between, like, every sentence, and it drove me crazy. And somewhere in all this, and I'm going through thousands of pages of this stuff, and somewhere in there's something about the Poetry Society that I need to know. But also included how much he spent buying cream soda that day, how much the gardener asked him for a raise, and on and on and on. And it made me think that everybody should leave something behind, because, if he hadn't done that, there's nobody, well, there are very, very few people left in the world today who actually remember John Bennett when he was alive. And there's going to be a point at which nobody remembers him. And all the stuff that he ever went through would be totally unknown to anyone, but he wrote it all down. And I would just encourage everybody to do some form of that. Like, honestly, if someone said, "Hey, I got these papers that your great-grandfather wrote, wouldn't you want to read them?" I would love to know what my great-grandfather thought and did. I know next to nothing about him. I know what's in the census report. So anyway, I'd encourage everyone to do that. But I am going to do the door prizes now. in honor of John Bennett, who was the speaker, and all he did that night was he read an article that he wrote. He wrote an article about the contributions of the Poetry Society to South Carolina's literary legacy. And that was his speech. And it was really just his newspaper article that appeared earlier I think the previous month in September. And that was it. And then, of course, they were done and they did what they wanted to do the most, which was to hobnob with each other and have cocktails and talk and whatever. So anyway, in honor of John Bennett is the key to the door prizes tonight. If you look on the back, on the board, and at the bottom of the list, most people will not see John Bennett as the hospitality chair, but if you have John Bennett as the hospitality chair of the board, then you won a door prize. So, oh, Judith. All right, you get to choose between Longfellow's biography and Garrison Keillor. And our other door prize goes to Rob. Congratulations. And that's all I'm going to say. And we now will have Robin come up and introduce our opening poet.
Who's probably about this height. I really appreciate those people who have come out tonight, because if you're not here, you don't know, but the weather in Charleston is pretty rotten this evening. My hair is an indication of this. I can keep it straight only when it's not doing this. But also, I want to mention, tonight we have two really special poets, and the reason that they are special more than anything in my mind, when I was doing the programming this year, I wanted some people who are our own. I think it's important that we celebrate ourselves sometimes and not just bring in amazing people from other places who have done amazing things as well, because we have some pretty cool people here. So tonight, both poets are ours. And I think that's something to celebrate, because I think they're quite lovely. And first up tonight, we have Ed Gold. After a few decades of child raising, and I totally relate to that, more than a few it feels like sometimes, Ed Gold has rebloomed as a poet. A graduate of the Johns Hopkins University Writing Seminars, he taught for many years at the University of Maryland. He has 3 chapbooks, including Sundown in 2023 and Love Ship in 2025, both from Finishing Line Press. Some of his poems have appeared in Think, Ekphrastic Review, Passenger, New Verse News, New York Quarterly, Cackalack, and others. He lives in Charleston, South Carolina, not only one of our own, but hometown guy, with his wife, Amy, and their dog, Edie. And he conducts the Skylark Poetry Contest for South Carolina high school students, which is a very cool thing to be doing. He is grateful to be working with Richard Garcia and the Long Table Poets. And I know another poet who's very grateful to work with Richard Garcia. So please welcome the lovely Ed Gold.
Oh, this is great. Thank you, Elizabeth. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for asking me to read. Thanks for coming out. I was born in a blizzard, and my bar mitzvah, 14 inches of snow in Baltimore, and my young uncle rode around in a Volkswagen picking up all the people who couldn't drive. Anyway, but here we are. So I want to start with a poem that Shakespeare really could have written. The first 2 poems came from exercises that Richard gave us to get started. And this one, we had a list of Elizabethan words to try to put together into a poem. And It's also the title poem of the book that's coming out next Monday, Love Ship. But here we go. Love Ship. That eye bite you flashed me, was it an amoret or a blench? Are you my half marrow, or are you just folding me? I am Mally of your fernticles and myrtles. I swingle in the crisples of your hair. I linger at your heart spoon, the soft curve of your nuddle. Let's shab out to the sky parlor under the dream hole and smick together and snoozle and quaggle all over like jelly. Don't be carked. There will be no afterclap. I am no mere belly friend or Franyon, no Walf performing Merlimuse. We are side by side in the kissing crust, and it smells like cloves and oranges. The kissing crust is a great little image. I don't know if you know, but when two muffins are together in the oven and they merge, that's called the kissing crust. Shakespeare had it all going on. This poem started, Richard said, bring in your driver's license or bring in some document, bring in something. So here's a driver's license photo. I got my first license in 1965 after flunking the first time because my father hadn't taught me how to park yet. He warned me that I wasn't ready, but he let me take the test anyway because I was desperate to drive my girlfriend Connie to the junior prom. Fortunately, Connie and I got to make out in the backseat of David Huffman's father's baby blue convertible because David already passed the test. Now, so many driver's licenses later, I see that my head has turned into a pear like my Uncle Arnold's, and I have a little more hair than he did. I still wear that V-neck black sweater. I look much too happy in this picture. They actually gave me a license again. Or maybe I have already started my decline. Maybe I don't even know where I am. The DMV that used to be on Lockwood Avenue, this license will expire in 2031. I must renew my life. So I was walking into Page's with a bunch of my buddies. We have lunch on Friday. And I see Curtis Derrick. It was amazing. I thought, what a coincidence. I haven't seen Curtis in so long. We're going to see each other. So I start running over to this guy. Oh, wait. He was like a miniature version of Curtis Derrick. He didn't have the beard. So he said, I beg your pardon. I said, oh, I'm sorry. There's an old friend of mine. I haven't seen him in a while. And I really thought he was you. What's his name? I said, Curtis Derrick. He says, that's not me. All right. Well, Curtis and I were just discussing how old we're getting and how we don't want to admit it. But here's one about that called Night Walk. The man I imagine I am is younger than I am and better looking. Women could possibly still be interested in the man I imagine I am. The man I imagine I am is more agile and strong than I am. Unlike me, he can still run 30 yards and catch a football. Unlike me, he can safely climb a ladder to clean out the gutters. The man I imagine I am doesn't have to be extra careful of potholes in the sidewalk. This is why the man I actually am blunders into holes, falls off ladders. This is why the man I actually am wears a nightlight on my head on the late dog walk. This is why the man I actually am is constantly trying to remind me I'm not the man I imagine I am. Thank you. Just a couple more. So I took another one of Richard's. I tried a fugue. You know, fugues are very interesting with the repeating lines. It's great for anxiety. You can't get something out of your mind, anxiety. But it's also great for this situation. Fugue for the first grandchild. Amy and I are going to be grandparents. Our daughter called to tell us.
It's their first. He will be an itchy ginger, but we can't tell anyone yet. The subject bobs up again. Amy and I are going to be grandparents. Even as my mind tries to move on, how can we not tell anyone? What else is there to talk about? Our chain is now connected to the future. Amy and I are going to be grandparents. We have handed over the magic beans. Each time I almost get away from it, the same thought floats up like the answer in a magic 8-ball. Amy and I are going to be grandparents. Amy and I are going to be grandparents. I hope you haven't heard. That means someone we swore to secrecy betrayed us like we did when we told them. But if you think the idea that Amy and I are going to be grandparents is something we can take in quietly without giggling and blithering, then I don't know what I can tell you. Who thought we'd get this old together? Amy and I are going to be grandparents, and we are not taking this lightly. We are happy to be here. At our age, some of the best are long gone, along with some of the worst. But Amy and I are going to be grandparents. Thanks. That's a good use of a fugue, that. Just two more. So this summer, I have had a hellish year. I had COVID for 3 months. I lost 25 pounds. Amy was scared to death. Then we got bounced out of her apartment at Dockside. Some of you will know about that. Then we now are living with my 99-year-old mother-in-law, which is quite a challenge. But we went to Italy this summer with the grandkids and the daughter and the son-in-law and the Machatunum, our in-laws. And I got totally charged up again, got completely booted back up. I'm going to read you 2 poems that I wrote in Italy. Oh, one thing, cribbage. How many played cribbage? Ever played cribbage? Well, there are just a couple little terms, pegging, but it doesn't matter. Ignore it. Playing cribbage with my grandson at Lake Garda. When you were 6, I did all the shuffling and dealing. You puzzled over every hand, showed me your cards, asked me which ones to put in the crib, and to forget what you had when we started pegging. At 7, you only asked about half the hands, and at 8, you were dealing. Now at 9, you can shuffle, and if you get good cards, you will beat me. Today you said you hoped we'd be playing when I am Mumsy's age, 97. I said, I hope so too. But at that point, if I get there, I may need help figuring out my hand, and you will do all the shuffling and dealing. And here's the last one. Up early on the patio at Lake Garda. I couldn't fall back to sleep because my love was curled up beside me in her green pajamas with little crocodiles. The mountain outside our window was busy gleaming in the sunrise, and all of the lake's feathers were shimmering. My grandsons will ignite in an hour and bombard us with love. Not a single boat is moving yet, and somewhere in these high hills, a dog is barking, and a rooster calls out 3 times. My fellow grandfather offers me a cup of coffee. We sit under the grape arbor and listen to the quiet. I want to be awake for every minute of this day. Thank you, guys. Thank you. That was close.
The wires up here are lethal. That was lovely. Embracing life that way. I really enjoy it. And yes, it is wonderful to have grandchildren. I've always been a big fan. They are a great antidepressant, yes. Yes. So our next poet is Curtis Derrick, who this afternoon offered us a wonderful look at poetry in a way I had not thought of poems at all. And as a movie buff myself, my son is a filmmaker, so it's kind of interesting that it just never occurred to me that there might be parallels. So I've been thinking about that workshop ever since, and I'm trying to think of how to make a poem go left from right to left. I'm trying to think of that. It's got me going. But anyway, Enough of that. Curtis Derrick retired after 42 years of teaching, which is astonishing. I only managed 33. With tours on all the tiers of academe. He lives quietly now in Colombia, who can blame him? Born in Puerto Rico and raised across the South, he took up writing as a boy for his own amusement and to impress elders. He taught most recently at Midlands Technical College and was a member of the board of the Poetry Society of South Carolina. As I said, we have 2 of our own tonight. Raised and educated across the South, he has won fellowships from the South Carolina Academy of Authors and Arts Commission. His poetry has appeared in magazines, journals, and 2 anthologies, 20, and the Southern Poetry Anthology. Please welcome the wonderful Curtis Derrick.
Well, thank you all for coming. I am the real Curtis Derrick, not the not the imposter that. When I was trying to put my thoughts together in terms of what I would read, and the workshop, the poems that I would use in the workshop, I came across the Stanley Kunitz poem, King of the River. It's a wonderful poem. If you don't know it, you should track down Stanley Kunitz and King of the River. But it has these lines that as I was reading through it, particularly registered with me this go round. And the lines are, if the heart were pure enough, but it is not pure, you would admit that nothing compels you anymore. Nothing at all abides but nostalgia and desire. And as I was reading through the poems that I brought, I realized, it's nostalgia and desire. Nostalgia, starting out with, when I was born in Puerto Rico, I started life as a Spanish-speaking little boy, and fate threw a curveball to me, and I was brought stateside, and I was a Spanish speaker, and I had a pretty traumatic experience, starting with my grandmother, actually. And this poem, My Second Christening, gives you some idea. My second christening. I was up in boyhood when we first met, mis abuela y me. We got off on the wrong foot, the story goes, stumbling over our different tongues. Por favor, abuela, quiero agua. For me, her firstborn grandchild, a cold Coca-Cola was just the thing. Que estúpida. I melted down. But the final word was hers, the nickname Buddy. She bestowed it like a blessing, a birthright I had coming to dream and be American in the Eisenhower 50s. The name Cortito, by which till then I knew myself, was shucked for good and left behind. Directly into the mic. Okay. To lose your native tongue, you keep silent for quite some time. The path you've traveled as a boy, so familiar since birth, is lost. The aftertaste lingers like faint aromas of your fondest words, flan, paella, arroz con pollo, like the sounds and feel of viento, sol y lluvia, abrazos y besos. All of it flayed from your tongue as incorrect. You listen intently as long as it takes, taking to heart the estranging voices, spouting phonemes like invisible clouds, clouding the air. Your ears clutch at them, plucking syllables, setting them on your tongue, molding your breath to match. To be young, losing your native tongue is to see the way words cloud our human weather, every language rising like vapor, affecting our atmospheres. each latitude subject to its own meaning, myths of being human, with all that is known for a time and nothing proven forever. So I had to learn English, and now you would never know that Spanish was ever there. I actually had real trouble relearning Spanish. I was quite traumatized as a little boy at first. But learning English had some things about it too. This poem is called The Glare, and I have as an epitaph after County Cullen's Incident. If you don't know County Cullen's poem Incident, it's kind of a stunner. The Glare. While traveling in old Columbia, I said the N-word as a boy, the fallen fruit of racial slurs a kid picks up in hearing, tasting for himself, the term punishable in my parents' book, forbidden fruit, gleaned from others in my orbit then, white universe, white side of town where I belonged, implying others belonged elsewhere and lower down. Hatred as an evil coils, waiting to strike at every human heart, but innocence first shatters on so much less, blinded by some glaring norm, demanding to our shame that we conform. And I haven't seen a June bug in quite some time. I don't know, did they come to Charleston like they did in Savannah? They used to come in swarms in Savannah. And we as kids would capture them, and we even would take a thread and tie it to a leg, and then you could walk them on a leash, like a leash, as they fly it around. And, I'm sure the cruelty was. Anyway, this poem is titled My Last June Bug. As if they meant to get it over with, that they swarmed that year in May. Squadrons appeared at school recess to rev the voltage of our wonder, teasing, then lumbering into range. Fair game for child's play. We clambered through yards collecting, lids clanked like jaws gulping chum. In the belly of my gallon pickle jar, one hovered midair and wouldn't light. Like God, I shook him in his rapture. He's like my dad, Joe Freeman cracked, lost inside his bottle. Yet to come was his old man's ticket out that August. Shotgun in the den, jarring wife and kids awake, no note goodbye. I plucked the June bug free, an iridescent berry off some invisible tree. Its hum amped up to thrum. Gently then I leashed it by the leg. The cupped bug, a frenzied buzz, and what chagrin when my greatest care exerted its heavy cost. An eyelash of a leg my thread tore off. And yet he stayed aloft. Holy shit, Joe Freeman shrieked. He did it on purpose to get away. Rising out of reach with plodding grace, my June bug flew, leaving all of us undone. I kept the leg in a cotton-padded matchbox, then let it go with Joe for luck the day the Freemans moved away. And, nostalgia and desire seems that first time when you're smitten with a female is, memorable, at least for me it was. And I remember, at one point I was rereading Keats's La Belle Dame Saint Merci, and I thought back, I think I'll crib on that. This is called La Belle Dame et Moi. Oh, what could ail thee, squire of 12, alone and palely loitering? What could ail thee? Beholding the curve of leotard on hips, bare legs and prancing boots, a craving came to own me. I barely noticed her twin batons, their wheeling blur, she the featured twirler. An angel's face tilted upward at her tosses, set aglow in sodium lights. Her body's verve, her hair black and flouncing down her back, wetted with the rhythm of the band. Then the lights went out. A ring ignited, big as a wagon wheel. It flamed and flew again. I knew she had me. I wished that I had her, yet still a boy. And she, the oldest sister of my friend. That night, sleeping over, I heard her bathing in the tub, singing Martha Reeves to late night radio. We held each other dancing on a smoky floor as I drifted off to sleep. Next day, dawn flaring in their breakfast nook, she appeared in nothing but a t-shirt. Leaning over, she smiled, palmed my cheek, and with a voice still husky from her sleep, said, "Hey, good looking." Home again, still hazy from her touch, like Adam with his crush. I bottomed out. Yeah, all the memories. Also, I was quite into sports at the time, and my dad was too preoccupied. And this is called the autographed baseball. I had this wonderful baseball that I kind of inherited from a friend who just gave it to me because he. But this poem is obviously about the baseball, so I'll start. The aura of it set me apart. In Pee Wee first, then Little League. The baseball with its signature, my signature is Sultan of Dugouts. Teams rubbed it, fitted in their mitts so the name would show, Babe Ruth. Our God, our church, so different from the sect my father served. Even as my rubber cleats changed to spikes, the poor and sick occupied my father more. Missing my first home run over Ambuck Stadium's low right wall, he listened distractedly at supper, then rushed away to shut-ins in need of the sacrament. His own flesh and blood, the eldest, I offered the hallowed ball next day for batting practice. Everyone swung for the fence. Each time I retrieved it from under oaks, flying pennants of Spanish moss, I felt menaced by my sacrilege. TH is all that's left these days. The sainted signature smudged off in that punishment of bats. No lesson to this parable, but the usual about sons and their dad's approval. Yet, touching the fading remnants of Ruth, I remember my father's heart and hope my own heart's sacrifice serves some equal truth. My dad was a minister. He was a great dad, and I don't mean, but he was a minister. And we kids bore that burden into the world. And I realized there were lots of other men in the world that I was kind of attracted to because of, what the stuff they did and the things that they knew, and, the way they conducted themselves seemed a whole lot more interesting than being good all the time. And then I've in my collection, I've kind of consolidated them all into this character, Uncle Ralph. Partly because I did have an uncle like this, but there are other guys too. But this poem is called The Gospel According to Uncle Ralph. These, he said, holding up his hands, tanned, thick, broad, scarred, and scabbed, these will teach you everything you need to know through failure first and then success. So bend your mind to persevere with these and learn. Get stubborn because you got to. Shit will break, blow up in your face, make you feel a fool, but don't let breakdowns break you. Avoid being reckless, but match caution with resolve. We're all dying men, and every year we breathe, we cross the date of our demise not knowing. So why not take a risk? Better to die trying shit than sitting on your ass or lying down. Pausing, he set his gnawed cigar on the table edge, switched on the welder. Now put on your goggles, boy, and hold that clamp. We'll have us a feast by 6 o'clock. If Jesus and his crew had had a Ralph's almighty grill and cooker, the 5,000 would have ate catfish po' boys and had seconds too. I don't know whether it's having a particular sensibility or what, but stuff happens and it's just so uncanny that you have to do something with it, and so you start writing and something does come of it. But I was sent to the attic. I can't remember how old I was, but to assemble a playhouse stove for my sister one Christmas. And the attic was this big cavernous, chamber with dormer windows. And in the process of putting together the stove, a sunbeam came in and the dust started, and it changed my life. Serious, it just, something happened then. So this poem is called The Boy in the Attic. It was Christmas Eve. At a dormer warmed by the sun, a boy assembled a playhouse stove. He imagined his sister cooking make-believe meals for make-believe children and husband. He fastened the eyes, dials, and oven door, knowing he'd savor her invisible pies. Sweet-scented servings with a la mode mouthfuls of air. He pictured her stirring pots, dreaming up acts of love. A twirling galaxy emerged in a sunbeam. Dust motes swirled as he blew them. Particles twinkled like stars, but proved to be nothing in his upraised palm. He laughed at himself in the window pane, beguiled and amused by the God game. For I so loved the world, and poof! Outside, the world remained as it seemed. The oak in its place, a blue jay warned of the neighbor's cat. His reflection inside dissolved on the glass like shadows erasing in time. He hadn't the words to explain how he knew. He could never return to his joy so simple the moment before. He was more than a boy and barely beginning to see what had changed in the world he was taught to imagine. Thomas Merton had a book during the 60s that came out. He felt he had a real guilty conscience about being sequestered away in the monastery when all of the civil rights upheaval and everything was going on. And the title of his book was Confessions of a Guilty, I think it is Confessions of a Guilty Bystander, which I cribbed for the title of this poem, but I also have an epigraph from T.S. Eliot. But this is called Confessions of a Guilty Bystander, and the epigraph goes, what might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Puerto Rican by birth, where so many rivers of blood collide, converging as one blood, one river, an omni-river, as Albert Murray saw it, I might have been black. I might have understood rivers like Langston Hughes, swimming a different American crawl in different current, knowing darker depths and colder, like Emmett Till and the Tallahatchie. I might have kept my native Boricua tongue and might have been told to drink at colored fountains just in case. But I learned to live as I have instead and lived and lied to myself that I was a good Southern white boy who understood what it must be like to be Black. There were times I wanted to be consumed by cravings I heard in Miles Davis, Monk, and Coltrane. Their music called me out like a burning bush to be the man I wanted to be, to cross the line, to veer away from any chalked for me to walk by someone else, jaywalking my own way while God watched, hovering above, like the hover over Roundtree in Shaft's opening stroll. Drunk on Isaac Hayes, I wanted to live where being bad was good, but good was how I had it being born. Not like I might have been, but white. I'm at a loss how one makes amends for his luck, the chance factors everyone gets at birth, except to note we're all born blameless and not deserving what we get either way, privileged or otherwise. In that way, we are equal and individual as swans, swimming a world that knows no justice. And yet, when the waters are serene, we can recognize each other reflected in ourselves, sisters and brothers joined at the root, in time so deep we no longer touch bottom. Might we calm the waters now together? Might we hold our tongues, our tweets, our taunts long enough to glide in peace and look at how our dignity and grace are shared and worth preserving? For malice will never drive out malice. These next two, talk about nostalgia. My wife and I spent our honeymoon year on Folly Beach. She always wanted to live on the beach, and she asked me if there was something I always wanted to do that I didn't feel like I could. And I said, yeah, I've always wanted to quit work and see if I could write something worth a hoot. And she said, I'll give you a year off to do nothing but write if you'll move to the beach. We got up from the supper table and went and got boxes from the liquor store and started packing. But we did. We lived on Folly Beach, and it was a wonderful honeymoon year. But this poem is Newlyweds at 40, and it's dedicated to my wife, Ari. When you stirred our covers laughing at the couple married 50 years, looking happy as two porpoises in the Sunday Times, I felt a new king tide wash over me, an ocean of difference, with old fears lifted to a surface rendered harmless, where my father, caught in his 50s, sails forever in his brightly colored dinghy, his voice droning through planks, where one day my brothers will navigate with him, unbothered by gnats, their brogans scraping inside the hull. Whenever storms roll in, they'll batten down with hymns and prayers as taught, but I cannot. I've left that old impressing surface light wherein their light lifeboat tosses. That light is a warming tangent now with you. It grazes our backs as we rise to breathe before we sound the atavistic dark and hear the seabed call again in its deepest language. And with new bodies, we learn to speak and write our story. And this is just another quick Folly Beach poem. Is that clock? I have plenty of time. But okay. This is called Sculling the Marsh at Folly Beach. I used to love to paddle around in the marsh there on the backside of the island. Sculling the Marsh at Folly Beach. Against the wind, with glaring stillness, an egret comes to light, a fright for tiny citizens. Fiddlers sidestep into holes, males brandish their man claw, grotesquely large for courtship, vain hope against death angel's beak. My trailing wake in time will break the spell of quiet binding us. The common prayer of sound to silence in this sanctuary of sky, chromatic clouds, fresh air, all mirrored in the glassy calm I coast. With views of heaven high and low, mud banks flank my passing shell. I sink my oars in cloud and pull, pondering how, like easeful death, what solitude relieves is obedience to any human thing. The egret launches past, scouting further up the way. Marsh grass swaps secrets with the breeze. In tongues I wish I knew, I pine to comprehend what truth being speaks at large, rebutting man's imagined murmurings of a distant God. We don't have any grandchildren yet, but our daughter was quite a blessing, and this is called The Visitation. She had this routine when she was a toddler, barely bigger than a toddler, but it's here in the poem. The Visitation. Unbridled, immodest mirth. Stripping for her bath, my daughter flings garments off along her path, barely pausing as she sprints. A manic munchkin bee-like buzzing me in passing. Come back, my darling moon. The midget wobble in her cheeks, tan line from the beach, accelerates. I take the bait and play, yet suddenly these hands that cupped her bottom, steering her infant sleep from room to room, now break. Her fleeing grin is different, with a glinting eye, trailing like a lure, rehearsing for a groom. Full tilt, she turns the corner out of reach. Down the dim corridor, her backlit silhouette swings the bathroom door and chirps, "You can't catch me, Daddy." Slam. I listen, stranded in the dark, lingering to see the water stops, thankful when it does. Inside, her chatter is a love song to the light she's bathing in and is. As if summoned by my listening, my dead father draws near. His ear is pressed inside my heart to hear the granddaughter he never knew. His old laugh comes flooding back, and in his unexpected joy, I feel my life change hands. I had a friend, Robin Carter, and his favorite thing to do was to take his recording equipment, which is pretty expensive in advanced recording equipment, but he would go into Congaree Swamp with these massive microphones and he would record bird songs. I think I read this once before when we were meeting in North Charleston. Do you remember that? It's been 5-6 years ago now. And I played some of his recordings while I read this song, read this poem, which is called Song, and it's a memorial poem to Robin Carter. But I was always struck by, what would the world be like if more men just decided they'd go out in the swamp and record birds and not, Song to Robin Carter. Shall I tell you what it's like listening to your Congaree recordings now that you're gone? Near and distant bird songs, the swamp's incessant call and response, mosquito sorties buzzing the microphone like exclamation marks, avian host resounding through the forest vault's slow growth of time. With warm feelings, I hear your hand, or is it merely wind, some breath of air that comes through the trees? As you raise the mic like a wand or conductor's baton, head cocked, the better to detect the wren, the sparrow, the chickadee, flicker, sapsucker, crow, and kinglet, that pileated now high up, drumming holes through bark, warblers, mockingbirds, grosbeaks, jays, waxwings, every voice familiar to you, enthralling, your headphones tuned to heaven's frequency, your choir digitized then, resurrected by laser now. I listen in highest fidelity and wonder, once diagnosed with your own demise, scanning the forest vault, sun sifting through the crosshatch of branches, was it heartbreaking to hear, perhaps for the last time, or was the joy still as pure, as penetrating, seeding heart and mind alike, the way light there seeds the ground, never blinding, dappling instead. Songs call out and inward too, to anyone hearing as I do, both anthem and requiem, ancient, primeval, distilled by modern recording, soaking into the bone, making bone ring on the wavelength of crystal, the key of life, so elemental that even laid to rest, once tongue and bone are dust, the chorus reverbs, echoing time, taut as a humming wire, stayed and unstayed between us. I did have two parents. My mother was, I'm actually, I think, temperamentally a lot more like my mother than my father. But this poem is Summer Burial. I should have read a couple of poems about my mother before. But, oh, well, I've gotten now to her funeral poem. Summer Burial. An airplane putters above in the haze, prop wobbling in the humid air. The Reverend reads Kipling. When the Earth's last picture is painted, the plot lacks shade. Noon alights the wither of grass. The minister's voice wilts as he reads. We're spared the labor of hymns. Far off and receding, the small plane mutters its prayer to the wing. In backyard somewhere, it delights children how the shadow passes over the ground, leaping houses without sound or friction. Like souls, emptied of light, unfleshed, they migrate the invisible night, boundless over the planet, eternally calling, ushering others. In the night glow of clocks, you shudder awake, checking the hour, never supposing that souls dream too of shucking what's mortal, leaving it stiff and boxed under tents and places like this, afresh on the breeze of remembrance, like your mother now, sitting on the bed, embedded in you, her voice reciting the ending that goes, for each, for the joy of working, and each in his separate star shall draw the thing as he sees it, for the God of things as they are. This poem is for my daughter. For my daughter, I think of you in your private hours away at school, teaching yourself to knit, the tick of your needling knotting a row, pursuing the new, YouTube lending a hand. You know what you're looking for in the way of style and fit. Your mind's eye allies with willfulness in starts, false starts, unraveling, beginning anew. And like magic, the heretofore unseen emerges in the fabric of being, parroting all creation as the invisible hand works with the hand of the visible, and an infant emerges, and a toddler then from the infant, and a child from the toddler, then a teen, then a young adult leaving home. Even while things you cherish unravel with change, trust the hands of creation. They will season your own with healing. Live by the feeling of making something by heart. Always take heart in nature, composing yourself in the plain and pearl of renewal and change, as the sea is endlessly breaking in the making of tides. I'm not sure about this. This poem is called To Old Husbands Complaining They're Not Getting Any. Buck up, caballeros. So your wife's libido has headed south. Bed down beside her like nothing has changed. Buy a sombrero. Weather her snores. Ignore your ego shuttlecocking its whys. Why you? Why now? Why such needling your long fidelity? Like an hombre, shoulder your years like an old serape. Make the most of its colors. Of course there are blues. We all have our disappointments, but relish the others. Flaunt instead the parrot reds, parakeet orange, green of the cockatoo. Somewhere tonight, a small boy, drawn to the sound of his parents' ecstasy, will find his father's scorn and loneliness perched like a dark owl on the moaning branch of his mother. With his heart racing like a vole's, crossing exposed in an open field, he will not sleep, feeling the tug of the hunter's moon. Are you not he in this instance, small and alone, the moon waning, nearly new? American boomer. Ruminating hungers that I've had since reading Rabelais, appetite grows by eating. I recollect how only plump chicks, cheeky grins, gravitas in their cleavage, gravitated my way as a teen, like I was buttered bijou popcorn. We'd weigh in at matinees with drinks, milk duds, Jordan almonds, Reese's, and paw, knee, and neck through double features, licking Snickers off each other's fingers. Could we have sensed in our innocence the power of appetite, tipping the balance towards increase, fudging the way life's portion melts before you're through? I cleaned my plates, had seconds too, famished always, not knowing why. Today on Sunday China, I see myself all wavy in the gravy glaze and watch my children's children graze as I have all my life on the big dumb tits of luck and plenty. Might as well. Joe Kennedy, you may know him more as XJ Kennedy. He explained to me one time, how could I possibly publish poems with the name Joe Kennedy? Without getting confused with a doppelganger. But anyway, he published, some of you may have had one of his great textbooks. He was a great anthologist and textbook writer, but he also was a wonderful poet. He's still alive. He's 96 years old. But he had an anthology that came out a while back called Tigers of Wrath. It was poems of anger, invective, and, that kind of thing. And I asked him, I said, Joe, he was just such a nice guy. I said, have you ever written an angry poem? And he said, his explanation was, I've tried, Curtis, but I guess I just don't take myself serious enough. Every time I try to write an angry poem, it just turns ridiculous and absurd. And so, I've been trying to write an angry poem, and lately I've been pretty outraged. So I'll offer this. This poem is called The Laughing Turd. Finished with business, I flush to no avail, and the chuckling starts. Flushing again, it giggles dizzily as it twirls. With force, I press the handle down. The swirling water rises. This time, dark laughter echoes from the bowl. I glare inside, and there, as if to mock the shroud of Turin, a face emerges, bronzy brown. Is it our president? In reply, it smirks. Repeatedly, I flush. The thing's unsinkable. It's just a turd, I think, absurd. As though provoked, it starts to sermonize. Our country's gone to pot, trust me, it declares, as if saying so were proof. Then fringe religious media arrives, certain their viewers will see it as a sign. Praise God, a BM miracle, as true as any burning bush, a talking turd chosen to be, in God we trust, our president, so Christ-like, releasing criminals, laying hands on harlots, rendering unto Caesar everything he sees as his, and dealing unto God what little's left. probably shouldn't egg me on to write anything else. Yeah. Okay, this is kind of a longish poem, but I mentioned it in the workshop today. I had this crazy experience on Monday, Thursday and Holy Week, right in the middle of COVID. I was on my walk and a dogwood petal I inhaled it. It blew. It was in the wind, and I just complete timing. And so I titled it, Walking on a Morning During COVID, I Taste a Dogwood Petal, Monday, Thursday, 2020. It flew in beneath my hat brim on the breeze, a wafer in the sacrament of astonishment. The air aflutter with disintegrating blossoms, dogwood, cherry, wisteria, all confetti I paraded through on my routine route around the lake this Holy Week, profaned by viral scourge. Thousands sickened, their breath faltering to a crawl and failing. The petal briefly weighed upon my tongue, mildly bitter, not dissolving like the bread I took with wine on bygone Easter Sundays, when mother sang soprano in the choir as though she knew the stars had ears, and my father's tenor rose in harmony. My boyhood years of sweet hosannas. I thought of wormwood and gall, the way stupefying woe makes us yearn to have some cause for hope. Church rites for grief and loss are soothing offices, but bound with dogma I find confining. A creed can be a coffin for one's thought, how he perceives the world and tends his questions in his thirst to comprehend. I removed the petal from my mouth, wind-flung thing from its parent tree, a mere flake in the blizzard of fading spring. It seemed of little consequence, but for the strangeness I discerned the moment I breathed it in. My odd communion with countless others inhaling in perfect synchrony, as bird songs and trees were answering the wind. The petal might have blossomed in my mind, bitter and unscented, as simple memento mori, but for how it flagged that happenstance, me with unknown others on the raft of time. One moment ticked away an instant like every other, one moment ticked away an instant like every other, filled with burgeoning contingencies, unseen weather on the ocean of dark silence, a death knell breath, odds were for some. I carried the petal for all of us, crossing shadows as they shortened, geese passed overhead, rebounding north. In Gill's Creek, a heron composed himself, motionless in water to his shins, not unlike myself the night before in stream of consciousness. Out hunting stars I knew and constellations where galaxies detonate and die. I went to praise the light, delighting in the mystery of its beaming on once stars go out, a fate not so outside our own, a mirror to how remembrance sears the quiet in our hearts sometimes, igniting us with awe. Two more. This one's called Lying Outside with My Inward Sphinx. It's got an epigraph from Rubain Daria. Pity for him who one day looks upon his inward sphinx and questions it. Light summer humidity, a fine afternoon, a breeze stirring boughs, leaves like little spades turning light. Reclined in his company, I hanker at times for a cigarette, smoke lending a more tangible air to his pronounced inscrutable mummery. But not today, I'm verging on a nap. We float in the moment, ignore noise from surrounding events, listen at what's between us, a wonder that nothingness even exists. Imagination is such a gas just before dreams, fizzing in its delirium. I have no need to ask what he sees in basking apart, sedate in the coffin of air beneath my chaise lounge. I can see he is transparent as time, that silent eraser, always the rub, in passing. He will lounge in my place when I am gone, my indentations molded to fit the ineffable heft of his stillness. And this one's called You Keeper of Sleep. And I'll finish with this. The title comes from my misreading a Pessoa poem, which is called You Keeper of Sheep. And I misread it. And then of course I read Pessoa, but days later, I couldn't shake that whole You Keeper of Sleep out of my head. So I decided, well, let's see what happens. You keeper of sleep, keeper of sleep. You maketh sleep lie down on green lounges, where wind chimes lift cares left over from morning, and thoughts cease whispering, disappearing like clouds brushed aside by the breeze. You shepherd sleep evenings to nestle on foam and ease into down, ceiling fan whipping up dreams like weather for sleep, pinned in folds with bedding ruffled like fleece. Only your animal breathing stays up to graze, ruminating air cuds, heaving up snores. On waking of late, you ponder the years sleep tending, your rising from and falling to it, mindfulness tabled, volition shelved. Old age coming on shades your awareness. Could it be your soul, that timeless companion, yoked is rumored in utero with you, calling you inward out of the sensate world to float in the dark as before you could breathe? As if a good sheepdog, it rustles up sleep more often these days, pressing sleep on you at odd hours, watching TV, stray moments reading, keeping grandkids. Today, a brief doze at the wheel when you missed your exit. And now, in this wee hour, returning to bed after having to pee, you feel it doggedly circling and imagine the flock growing woolly with infinite rest. In the quiet, you wish you could yodel or whistle him closer, but his range is too boundless and inward, and he's been out of reach all along. Thank you for asking me. Thank you. This has been a real treat, and I welcome the opportunity to come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Curtis. Wasn't that wonderful?
Yes.
I really enjoyed that. I was thinking back to, I guess about 9-10 months ago, when I contacted Robin about being the program chair. And it was almost an emergency situation because normally we would have a slate or a calendar already put together. And we were talking about it, talking about this and that, the different things that we wanted to achieve with the programming this year. And I asked her, I said, you know what I want? I want to enjoy myself at a poetry reading. So many times, the poets wants you to feel their pain more than, and I was like, I just want to go to a poetry reading where I just love the whole thing all the way through. And I feel like I got that tonight between you, Curtis, and between you, Ed. It was wonderful from start to finish. So thank you so much. And now I want to do two things that I want to get done right away. I want to get the picture with the banner because that's what we got to do. And up here turned out to be really good with the black background. So I want to do that again. We need one person to do the camera. David, would you do that? Thank you. And we'll do that. And we've got food up there. I want every bit of that gone. It's got to go. I can't eat it. And we were supposed to have a fruit plate and they didn't make it. We've got these sandwiches. They're really beautiful looking. And I want you to either eat them all up here or take them home, please. So let's proceed. That's it. So we can stop the live feed now. And we'll do the picture with the banner. We'll get that done right away. And then it's all about socializing. And so It's right here. So anyway, come on down. I want to turn this. Did you stop it already?
I did not, I didn't want to mess it up, so I didn't stop it.
Good.